p.m. So we will call the meeting to order. And I'll ask those to rise and find a flag in your room, and we'll start with the pledge allegiance to the flag.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our August West Shore Educational Service District Board meeting. Begin with our introductions. I am Vince Greiner, Vice President and temporary chair for this meeting anyway, in the absence of our chairman. On this way to Pat, I guess.
Pat Collins, Shirley Chancellor, Ellen Kearns,
Mark Corner.
Tracy Olchey,
Jason Jeffrey, and we can go to Carrie to start in the next room.
Carrie Harry, Amy Franco,
Dale Borowski.
Kim Teal.
Okay, thank you, folks. Next is ask the board to approve the agenda as prepared. And it was a revised one, just you should have gotten a slight revision on one as you came in.
so moved. Second,
Motion by Pat with the support of Ellen. Approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. The communication to the board. Is there written communication?
We do. We have a letter from Michigan school business officials, and I will pass that around. And Pam Mall, who I think many of you know, is our pupil accounting auditor, and she just recently did a 45-hour voluntary pupil accounting certification. And for those of you that know Pam, that's how Pam does stuff. She's always looking for the
that's
next
great.
thing. So it was nice to get that in the mail. Congrats.
Yes. Congratulations to Pam. We appreciate her dedication to her career for us. Is there any citizens present with comments or concerns? See none. On to the consent agenda. The approval by the board of our consent agenda for payment of bills, the amount of $683,092.82. Minutes of our July organizational meeting. We have 2 resignations and acceptance of grants for Mason, Lake, Oceana County each in the amount of $20,000 for our trusted advisor. We have a motion.
I'll make the motion. Support,
Motion by Shirley, with support of Pat, approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. On to the superintendent's report.
Okay, well, tonight is the big night, the moment that we've all been waiting for, because we get to discuss our COVID response preparedness plan. And this has been a hot topic at each and every board meeting around the region, or it will be by the 15th. I think as everybody at the table knows, and probably everybody listening as well, that by August 15th, all school districts are required to present their plan for opening in the fall to their boards of education, hopefully for approval. And then by August 17th, those plans have to be uploaded to the Department of Education and to the Department of Treasury. We get to perform that step for our local school districts, do the upload. And I think I have 5 of them right now that have already been approved. So before we get into kind of a high-level overview of the plan, you have a fresh, clean copy in front of you. Very similar to what was emailed to you. In fact, the only changes, we had a typo or 2 that we caught after we sent it to you. So just a couple minor corrections with spelling, but nothing with content. Compliments to the team, a ton of collective work went into this. Really is not only representative of the work of our leadership team and our staff member, but it really represents a lot of regional work that has happened and a lot of collaboration really outside of the region with state association and with colleagues. So just wanted to share that a lot of folks contributed to this. What we know to be true in terms of getting ready for school in the fall, just a couple of things to share. These plans are a really important part of getting ready, but probably the most important part of getting ready is the actual implementation of what we're going to do when kids arrive, and we do want kids to arrive. We know that given the nature of our programs, whether it's career and technical education or whether it's special needs students who really tend to have extreme needs, we feel like in most cases the best place for those students is with us. And so we're excited to have the opportunity to work with them. We also recognize that this is a fluid situation. And so we're presenting a plan to you today that could change tomorrow. And we are prepared for that. But we are hopeful that we get to start face-to-face in the fall as presented. We will be vigilant about monitoring the situation, including making sure that we're continuing to communicate with public health officials. We've been very fortunate that the district health department, number 10, the medical director, Dr. Jennifer Morse, has been incredibly responsive, answers phone calls, answers emails almost right away. She's probably not sleeping a lot, but I think we're in a really good situation that communication has been very strong. Certainly we need to make sure that we're communicating with our staff, with our parents, and with you. We also know that safety is the top priority, and I mentioned the health department before. We will continue to consult with those folks. When it comes to health issues, we've consulted with them. We've worked with our local emergency management. We've worked with our legal counsel, our insurance carriers, and some of those other school individuals that I mentioned. The key metric for us in terms of opening, in addition to public opinion, which is something that's pretty darn important, is a 5% threshold in terms of tests. And what we have been told, again, working with folks that have expertise, that's kind of the hinge point. If 5% of your tests are coming in positive and that percentage is trending upward, then you start to have some conversations about what you're doing in school. If that percentage is 10%, whether it's going up or down, pretty clear that you're going to have to consider making some changes. I looked on Monday. Mason County, we were at 0.7% positive, and in Oceana, which was the highest, we were at 2.8. And I believe Baldwin was 2.4. I didn't write that down, but I'm quite certain the range was at 0.7, 2.8. So we're in a decent place as of today.
What period of time is that? The previous week, previous month, or?
I believe it was for the previous day. Those are updated quite frequently, but I think the safest way to say it is that data, I believe, is based on those statewide updates that they do on the website. So as often as they update, there may be a lag on so that's kind of where we are. There are a number of things in the plan that we are required to do. And just a couple high points to mention to you relative to that is, first of all, we've got to make what's called a good faith effort, make sure that we're complying with all special education law. And Kim is calling that good faith plus, because in some of the discussions that we're having relative to really making sure that we're compliant with PL 94-142, we have to take some extra steps to make sure that we're implementing those IEPs to the fullest extent possible. Even though we may not have kids on site, school may not look exactly like it's looked for them before. So that's something that we have to certify that we're going to do. If we're in phases 1 through 3, I think y'all know that schools will be closed to face-to-face learning. We're in a situation where we are required to continue to pay our staff. We do have the ability to redeploy, folks so that they're doing quote-unquote meaningful work. We certainly would work with our associations, got into that situation, make that happen. And while we don't have athletics, we're also required in phases 1 through 3 to suspend any face-to-face school-related activities. So community-based instruction, those kinds of things would not be happening. Phase 4 is where we currently are, and that's the phase that is probably the most challenging because you're going to be back at school, but there are a number of restrictions and operating parameters that we have to go through. That's really what we want to talk to you about today, is what phase 4 looks like. And in all phases, kind of, the last thing that we have to certify, we have to work with those public health officials. Can't imagine anybody not doing that. We feel like we have some expertise in education, but in public health, not so much. So we're going to work with the people that do. And again, feel good about the communication and responsiveness that we've had so far. And that's not the same story that we're getting in other intermediate schools and other parts of the state. So I think sometimes we talk a lot about what we don't have here, and those are good conversations, but we have something that's decent in terms of some people to work with. So what we'll do now, if it's okay with you, is members of our executive team that are in the other room, they'll present to you the high points kind of their sections of the plan. We'll be able to entertain questions at the end of the little update that we give you. So Carrie will start. I'm just going to talk with you about health, safety, and facilities. And if we have questions for Carrie, we'll address those before we go on to the next person. Does that sound okay? Okay, so Carrie, I will pass it on to you if you're ready.
All right, I'll take that virtual baton. As Dr. Jeffrey mentioned, I'm going to be speaking to you about health, safety, and facilities, and it's really as it applies to generally overall to students and staff. Later on, Kim, Amy, and Dale will talk about more student-specific requirements as it relates to their respective areas. So Dr. Jeffrey did already mention a few references that we used in developing our plan. I just want to say, it was a very collaborative effort with a lot of different resources and a lot of different groups of folks being incorporated into the process. So, we've aligned it with the roadmap, but we've also referenced to the CDC, OSHA, District Health Department number 10, and studied the multitude of executive orders, and we've also collaborated with our ISD colleagues. And then, I want to mention too the regional reopening groups. So we had a health and safety and facilities regional group that was a lot of different folks from our local school districts that helped prepare this information as well. And we took that all into consideration in developing our plan. So the approach that we've used for the health and safety and facilities perspective, I guess, and maybe this is true of overall, I guess you could say, but it's really that, communication and teamwork. So one of the things we developed was return to the workplace guide for staff. And in your board updates, I know Dr. Jeffrey has shared that guide with you already. That guide came to us in an initial draft form from our positive psychology Orange Frog friends at Genesee ISD. So, we really liked the perspective that it took. It was really just, from that staffing positivity perspective. And we rolled that guide out to our individual phased groups as they've been coming back into the building to work on a full-time basis. We also rolled that out with our association, educational association members as well. Just really, speaking to the fact that, we don't have necessarily all the answers, and they may have some really great ideas to contribute to it as well. So, just that real teamwork, collaborative process in developing this guide. And just the main components of that guide really speak to, you've probably seen some of the MIOSHA posters that have been around the building, and it's, pretty much what you've probably been hearing in a lot of media sources at this point in time. Really advocating to folks to stay home if they're sick, creating an awareness of what those symptoms are, practicing good hygiene, staying 6 feet from others, and which in the plan they call that spacing, movement, and access, and then wearing a face covering. The other thing that's incorporated into our plan too is the screening. All of you had the opportunity tonight to do the screening. That was created by our technology department. And the screening questions, they really come collaboratively to us as well. It's a combination of the district health department suggested questions, and then really just feedback as we've gotten it all along the process on what else to include. And so then as far as the facilities, the cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, the other thing that we've done is really taken a teamwork approach on that too, recognizing that the cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing has to be everybody doing their share, everybody doing their part. So if I might be in a particular room and there's I've met there for a little bit, I might take down a Clorox wipe to wipe down the table, for example. And in the classrooms, these folks will speak a little bit to that on some of the particulars there too. So it's really that teamwork approach. And what the roadmap requires of us is that we clean and sanitize frequently touched areas every 4 hours with an EPA-approved disinfectant, and then also, multiple times of the day. Our custodial maintenance folks certainly will be involved in that process, but we've really taken that approach, like I said, it's a teamwork. We've also coordinated with, because of the fact that we have a lot of programs that are out in our local school districts, we've coordinated with our local districts to have those kinds of conversations about cleaning and making sure that, overall we're keeping students and staff safe. And that would include West Shore Community College too. Dale and I have had regular discussions with them to, especially because they're a little bit different than our local school districts, but very similar in a lot of ways as well. So, coordinating with them too. One of the cool things that we did that I heard actually today is really hard to come by at this point is we purchased an electrostatic cleaner for our ESD center and our buses, recognizing that a lot of the students here at the center are probably a pretty vulnerable population. Early on, it was suggested that we purchase one of these Clorox 360 electrostatic machines, and it's a pretty cool machine. Dr. Jeffrey will have in one of the future updates a short little video clip. It's like 1.5 minutes long, so if you have a chance, take a look at it. What it means is, the 360 machine is that sanitizing chemical really wraps itself around any surface that you spray it towards. So it covers 360 degrees of that surface. So just added a lot of extra protection from a sanitary perspective, and we have plans or procedures in place where that's happening on a regular basis, and certainly will continue to do so when the students are back here in the building as well. And then as far as testing protocols, we're really going to coordinate heavily with the district health department number 10. Dr. Jeffrey already talked about the discussions that we've had with them. I would say it's not just Dr. Morse. There's a whole team of professionals that we've been working with on a really very regular basis. In fact, one of the things that we did with our return to the workplace guide is we sent that to their reopening specialist, and she vetted our plan and gave us some suggestions for improvement and just helped clarify some of the questions that we were having at that point in time. So really, in terms of health, safety, and facilities, there's been a lot of input that we've sought throughout, and we've pretty much said to staff that this is a very fluid situation, and we're going to have to continue to be adaptive as we continue to navigate through this, especially as it relates to the health and safety of our students and our staff. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions.
Yeah, Carrie, this is Mark. I don't know if you can hear me through my mask, but we're an educational institution, so I'd like to call the board's attention to page 15, because this is really important. I learned a lot by putting our district's plan together.
Page 15 on the packet, Mark.
No, of the plan, page number 15. And I don't want to step on your presentation, Carrie, but I think it's important to dispel some rumors. So what happens when or if a student or staff member tests positive? The general public's under the impression that we have to quarantine the entire institution, and that's simply not true. So if you look at that page 15, they do a nice job with this. Like Carrie mentioned, the district will work very closely with the local health department. So if a kid gets sick, we can't require that the kid get tested. We can highly recommend it. Right? Same with the staff. And they can't come back to work until their temperature is down, right, below the 100.4 threshold. But in the event where there's a positive test, we don't automatically shut down the entire institution. We contact the health department. And then the process of contact tracing takes shape. Right? And that's really important for us to understand and to know that. The magic numbers are 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. So anybody in the previous 2 days who's in contact with someone who's tested positive, if they were within 6 feet of that individual for more than 15 minutes, we are required to contact them, contact their families, and let them know that they've potentially been exposed. Right? That doesn't necessarily mean that every kid in that classroom or every staff member meets that threshold. And so, I just want, again, I don't want to step on your presentation here, but the general public has no idea of what the protocol is. They will hear that someone got sick or went home sick or someone tested positive, and they will wonder why we haven't shut down the entire institution. The reality is that we're going to work very closely with the district health department and take our cues from them. So I just wanted to pound that point home, Carrie. That's all.
No, that was perfect. That's perfect. And actually, maybe I'll say, Dr. Jeffrey, do you want to talk about the video real quickly for the board, what's being developed?
I'm sorry, Carrie, say it one more time. I didn't hear
The video, the district health department video. Do you want to speak about that real quickly? I mean, it kind of relates to what Mark was saying.
Yeah, no, that's a great connection. So our health department they've done a couple things. There's an over an hour presentation dialogue that's on their website right now about this that anybody can watch. Go to the district health department for a lot more information. Dr. Morse was kind enough put together, it's 15 or 20 minutes, and it is a PowerPoint presentation with voiceover, and that will be available to all of our local school districts so that teachers can get that can get the key parts of the information and school administrators right from Dr. Morse. And that's something that she will be making available in the next few days. So we've got that resource. It does tie exactly to what, the point that Mark was making. We have a lot of misinformation out there, and sometimes, if the school superintendent says something, it doesn't mean as much as, when the medical director, who has that expertise presents it. So we're really grateful that she was willing to do that, and we're going to have that available. And that came out of our superintendent's association.
Okay, so thanks for adding that, Jason and Mark. So any other questions from anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to pass the baton over to Kim Teal.
Thanks, Carrie. First, I want to start off by just giving you an overview of what special ed covered in this plan. So we have early on, that birth to 3, those are our providers that go out into homes. We have ancillary providers who are going out into public school buildings, non-public, Head Start, and then we have programs sprinkled out in the other buildings too. So it really was a collaborative effort, especially with our reopening work groups of discussing what everybody is doing in those buildings, so we're all on the same page. We also include transportation, and then in the whole package of that, we're taking into consideration the unique needs of our students with moderate and severe disabilities. For the process, our special ed administrative team got together. We looked through the return to school roadmap, reviewing all of the requirements and recommendations. We gathered input from parents, the special ed parent advisory committee, department meetings with ancillary staff, teachers. We did a final review with early on representation, ancillary staff and teachers. And we also continued to get guidance from the district health department and had emergency management Liz come in and tour our building and give us recommendations for the plan. The biggest thing I think that most parents and our staff are wondering about is what are our learning options in the phases? I know that some of the local districts have released what they're doing. For us, for phases 1 to 3, just like everybody else, we would be in remote learning. When this happens, we'll have two-way communication at least once per week, and that mode and frequency would be arranged with the parent for what works for them. We'll also continue with packet options and then virtual options, which we'd like to enhance, and you'll see in your packet this evening a request for a purchase of 130 iPads. We're looking to increase what we're able to offer when students are in that virtual setting for remote learning. When we get into phases 4 and 6, our ESD programs are offering all day, 5 days per week programming in person, but we'll continue to offer a virtual option to parents. And all the way up through phase 6, that we have students with a wide variety of needs and medical conditions. So we really want to make that option readily available to parents, and with the potential of switching that at any time during the year, just because of the changes that could occur maybe even in their home setting or their vulnerability to illness. So we ask that they give us about a week's time to transition them to a different platform, whether they're going virtual or in person. When they are remote learning in those times when we have classes going on, they will get a schedule of times that they can connect to the classroom that is going live at various times throughout the day. We would also need to adjust transportation routes, classroom staffing kinds of things if they decided to go from virtual to in-person. For transportation, this is mostly Trina's section. She's worked on staggering loading and unloading time. Worked on masks being readily available for students when they get on the bus. We've gone with the route of disposable masks. And we also have hand sanitizer for entering and exiting the bus at both those times, and then cleaning, sanitizing the bus after and before each trip. And then last but not least, we've touched on social emotional wellness. This was a topic that came up from last spring that we learned a lot from. So we put some things into place, a mental health screener, more coordination with community services, continuation of student assistance teams for continued interventions and support for students who may need it during closures. Any questions about the special education portion of the preparedness plan? I will pass the virtual baton over to Dale and CTE then, and he'll give you a summary of that portion.
Well, thank you, Kim. The plan for CTE has been informed by our regional CTE work group that includes local principals, counselors, and CTE staff, the local superintendents association, the statewide CTE directors group, and guidance from the Office of Career and Technical Education. Consistent with the desires and plans of our local districts, West Shore ESD Career and Technical Education plans to use face-to-face instruction 5 days a week, following the requirements specified in the state of Michigan's Return to School roadmap. In phase 4, the use of face masks is required for all staff and students. Physical distancing, cleaning, and sanitization will be implemented as outlined in the roadmap. And as Perry alluded to earlier, we are working closely with West Shore Community College to guarantee the cleaning and sanitization. In phase 4, field trips to indoor facilities and in-person competitions will not be allowed. Therefore, we will seek to develop virtual field trips and participate remotely in competitions to the extent possible, so as to develop career exploration and leadership opportunities for our students. CTE instructors are preparing to deliver as much CTE course content as possible should we return to phases 1 to 3, where face-to-face instruction is suspended. There is a statewide effort to provide at least 4 to 8 weeks of lesson plans that can be done remotely by CTE teachers in all of the courses. Locally, we have Aaron Tarsar, construction trades instructor, as part of a group of which I'm facilitating to come up with those lesson plans that can be shared with teachers around the state. We met with that group this morning. Aaron has been a prime mover in that effort. I'm really proud of him. They've really stepped up to see what they can do there should we have to go remote. Now, that's a tall order for some of those hands-on classes, but they're really taking the challenge. Locally, we're also working with our technology work group to understand how we can interface with the technology of the local districts to continue instruction should we need to do that. And we are looking at the training needs of our teachers to increase their skill in this area. And I will take any questions regarding CTE. I will pass it on to Amy Tranko.
Okay. With GSRP, we're a little bit of an outlier compared to our other programs in the fact that we don't house any of the programming here on our campus. All of our program locations are within local districts and in community partner facilities. So one of the things that was really important for us was to have consistency with those districts and partners, processes and procedures related to safety and cleaning and screening and all that. We didn't want to be seen as a separate entity that parents didn't understand why my kindergartner goes through this process, but my preschooler goes through a different one. So that was really important. As a result, the decision was made, we provided language for Part A of the plan to all our sub-recipients. That is all about instructional delivery. How are we getting the instruction to the students? And we asked that they then put that language directly into their individual district plans. So their plans became a pre-K-12 plan versus just a kindergarten at 12 plan. Another reason that was done is then parts B through D that deal with safety, facilities, screening, hygiene. We aligned those with licensing, but we also wanted them aligned with district plans. Again, we wanted that consistency, knowing that some of the maintenance and cleaning companies are hired out, and so we needed that to be the same. And so there was also recommendation that our licensing plan for GSRP be coordinated with the district's plan as well, and that was recommended and actually expected by MDE. So that's a little different way GSRP had to go about their plan. We, like everyone else, used the Return to School roadmap. We had our LARA licensing guidance that we were required to look at, and we are still awaiting a little bit more from them regarding specific instances, and of course the executive orders. Input for our plan this year from the spring, we had given out a reflection survey to both our parents and staff about how the spring went. So we used a lot of that response and perception data to make adjustments in our plan. We also went through our advisory committee for GSRP that's made up of local superintendents, business leaders, program directors, and teaching staff, as well as ESD staff. And then finally, after that, we did consult with our SUPs and program directors, whether they're on the advisory or not. So again, phase 1 through 3, which is remote learning only, is very similar to last year, other than a few adjustments, which I'm going to highlight. One of the things we had a landing page on the ESD website that had content for preschool that will be updated weekly. In the spring, that wasn't quite updated every week. It was kind of put on in bulk so that families could move through it at their own pace. But the response we got is they'd like fresh content each week. We also are going to try to improve our packet, that we give out instructional packets that are paper packets, by having very clear expectations and cover sheets, both from the teacher and then also for the parent to follow, so that it's very clear. That's been a project also from the curriculum, instruction, and assessment work group that everyone's talking about, the work groups. They're working on that, and that is almost complete. They've been working super hard through the summer, meeting every Tuesday for 3 hours to make some of these products that will aid, like we said, preschool through 12th grade. So even GSRP will benefit from that work. We're going to increase our communication with families from 1 time a week to 2 times a week. And we're also going to build in some assessment practices so we can still continue to monitor student learning and growth. So those are the major changes in our plan. And then in phase 4, parents, again, will have a choice of in-person or remote instruction based on their preference and situation. So that's the highlight of the GSRP plan. If you have any questions.
Thank you, folks, for your presentations and discussion plan.
No, my question was going to be exactly what you asked us. If anybody had any final question, then just to acknowledge all the work that went in.
Tremendous amount of work, you can tell. I mean, they're so thorough.
The executive order was issued June 30th, so this was all put together in about 5.5 weeks' time. Basically, scratch, I think, for the most part. So I think that's just, things I've run into in my business, trying to respond to regulations and executive orders, and trying to respond to them. Seeing all this stuff that you folks put together, I'm very impressed with the work that went into this.
Thank you. I think we've really benefited working with other districts in the region. That's actually made the process a whole lot more successful.
Dr. Jeffrey, it's a little hard to hear you folks when you're talking. Can you maybe you guys talk a little louder, or is there a way to turn up the microphone or something?
I guess our microphone is up at that camera, I guess. Is that?
We'll try, Carrie. I know it's me. I have a tendency not to.
You're already better. Yeah. Just being aware.
Okay, thanks.
So, all right, where are we at here? Prepared. Okay, now we're on to reports and actions. Educational services update. Back to Amy on instructional services, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah. So just a few highlights. We're asking for the second reading approval for our GSRP agreements, handbook, and policies and procedures. Just a little bit of an update on the GSRP advisory committee. They've been meeting once a month at least since June to really, again, reflect on how the spring went, look at the perception data we collected. Recently, we've compared the LARA licensing guidance along with the roadmap, and then also came to a pretty overwhelmingly united decision to delay GSRP programming now until October. That's about, for most districts other than Baldwin, that's about a 3-week delay on programming. And the reason for that decision, after analyzing 9 different options, was just, there's too many unknowns in terms of funding. We definitely feel it would be, not a good situation to have kids come in, start programming, and then have to reduce sections, reduce classes, things like that. So the thought is, we will wait a little bit. It gives us more time to recruit, find out what's going on with the trends in terms of the illness numbers, and then be able to prepare and bring staff back a little bit later for that. The other thing, we have a meeting on the 24th. Another thing we need to prepare ourselves for is we did a really good job, I will say, coming up with a solution to the budget deficit for this year, but we know that there could be more of a deficit impending on us now. And so we're getting ourselves in position that where we can prioritize what some of those cuts may be when we actually get the numbers and hear the news. And again, I think the fact that that's being done as a regional committee from all districts is such a powerful statement about the collaboration and coordination of the region, and it's really been a good development in the GSRP programming world. So again, I'm very thankful to the ESD staff here, the finance and business department, Dr. Jeffrey, and then my early childhood department, all contributing to that. It's a lot of work to prepare for those, but it definitely has paid off in the end. Already talked about the CIA work groups. We've had over 30 local educators, again, from cross districts participating every Tuesday. We're at the place where hopefully next week, all of our products will be finalized, and then we're planning a show and tell where we will be advertising or pushing those out, promoting those with local districts so they get some use. But we've had 3 groups: assessment, engagement and expectations, and then social emotional learning. And the dedication of the members of those groups, both my team here and members in the ISD and from across the district, really should be commended. They've just done a wonderful job, and we are really fortunate with the quality of educators we have in this region. 2 quick asks from you is we're very fortunate to contract with Jen Orton. She, retired in June, and we would like her to come back for 28 days this year to help us out with some cognitive coaching, and then also some support with new teachers in the districts. That was a big ask last year before COVID, that how do we support new teachers better? And so having her go in and have it be a non-evaluative coaching opportunity, we thought was really positive and well received by our administrators. So we're going to start that. And then we've received those 3 $20,000 grants to our trusted advisor that will push forward some of the GSC work. So approval for both those items is requested. Any questions for me?
Amy, clarification, I didn't quite know if I heard it correctly, that the GSRP, is there going to be a common date, or is that dependent on the local school district where it's hosted at with their schedule that it was going to start on?
Other than Baldwin, it will be October 5th they'll start programming. So it is a universal, and part of that reason, Vince, is due to PD the week before, us coordinating that with our early childhood summit, and also budget related, where the year will run the same. So even though currently the start is delayed, we are operating under the assumption that the year will be the same length of time, and so there won't be any decreases that way. So it just keeps it even, and it ends their year and requirement closer to the end of a traditional K-12 school year. So there are some benefits with that delayed start.
Okay.
That's a long answer to a short question.
I heard the part about Baldwin being different or something, and then wasn't quite certain.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And also now with the decision to go all virtual, we're working through that. Our GSRP programming has to mirror that, so they will be virtual until that end of October that currently stands right now as well.
Thank you, Amy. Any other questions from the board? Seeing that we have a motion then to approve the agreement, the GSRP handbook, and the program and policies procedures handbook as presented. I think those were, we got that in the thick packet last month, so this is a second reading approval of those?
I'll move we accept those.
Motion by Pat with support of Shirley to approve those policies and documents. Discussion? If none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Now the special education presentation with Kim Teal.
Thank you. My report begins on page 13, about 1/3 of the page down. You'll see student handbook edition. So as we were developing the preparedness plan, we had some additional information that we needed to add to our handbook. So we have procedure and consent forms related to COVID symptoms. Those are on pages 15 to 19 in your packet if you want to review those. Also, related to the preparedness plan and changing times, you'll see the technology purchase request. We're requesting 130 iPads. If you turn to page 20 of your packet, there's additional information. The plan is for the devices to stay in the classroom during the day for the most part, but they'd be available for students to take home depending on their needs, and when they switch over to remote learning at any point during the year, they would take the devices home. The cost for the devices was obtained through the REMC spot bid, and right now Josh is saying because of the high demand, they would arrive probably sometime in October if they're approved tonight. And I just want to let you know, we had a teacher meeting today, and hearing the teachers' excitement about this possibility of having iPads for each of their students in the classroom and for the kids to be able to take them home so they'd be virtual, was just, they're pretty grateful. So I'm hoping that you approve this evening. It'd be great for kids and the teachers. The final agenda item I have is for Trina's proactive response training grant for the school bus drivers. And this is something MDE has approved, and there's an MOU in your packet, pages 21 to 23. So that's payment to TAM. It's actually to Ottawa ISD, who's the fiscal agent for TAM. Do you have any questions about those items?
Being none, we have the two motions in response to this section of the presentation. First, you approve the purchase of 130 iPads for a cost not to exceed $45,000.
I'll make the motion. Support.
Motion by Shirley, support of Pat. Is there any discussion? Now, we have other iPads already, I'm assuming, is that correct?
Yeah, each classroom has maybe 3 to 5. They're outdated. Some of the apps don't update. So this provides an opportunity where the students would each have one then when the teacher's instructing, and then they would each have one to take home for times of virtual learning. So the plan for the iPads that are already there that are old, we'll move those to our 3 early childhood special ed programs for their use because they won't be getting new ones.
What about our technical staff? Is this additional load on them probably to keep these updated and maintained and so forth? So is that correct?
And so we did meet with Josh about this. He leads ETA, and we covered some of those things. He has, I guess it's an app, then we get in the techie world where I rely on Josh a little bit, but he gave an example of how we'll pay for this platform app thing where he's able to push things out to those devices. And then as far as care and maintenance, that's why we went with the iPad route and the covers that we would get for them for durability, as compared to, say, we looked at Chromebooks with the keyboards, and we just thought that iPads would be less maintenance.
Right, and that's what we've already been using, I'm assuming, so that's something.
For the most part, districts are mixed. Some use Chromebooks, and the key piece with the Chromebook is you have a keyboard, but for our needs, the iPad made more sense, and it was at a lower cost too.
Right.
Good question.
Any other questions? Not, we'll vote on the motion to approve the iPad purchase. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have a payment of just under $175,000 to the transportation safety grant to Ottawa Area ISD with the proactive response training for school bus drivers.
So moved.
Motion offered by Mark with support of Pat. Discussion, and this is, Jason, you told me earlier that Ottawa is the fiscal agent for this.
Yeah, they are the fiscal agent for TM, which is State Professional Association for Transportation Directors, training as president of that group.
But somehow we got the grant or something, so we got to transfer the funds to them.
We got the grant a couple of years ago, and we're still trying to spend the grant funds appropriately for bus drivers. I mean, there was an update that you received a couple of weeks ago that had there was a password protected video, and you can see that some of it, that's more of the fruits of the labor of this grant. So it's all connected.
It was about 30-some minutes I saw. I watched about the first 3 or 4 minutes. So, yeah.
So does this teach our bus drivers to drive like Steve McQueen?
I didn't watch
Very
it.
soon, the
Find out.
bad guys coming,
It's all about safety, so I don't think.
Okay,
we're driving like
Yeah.
all right.
You mean on the motorcycle?
Well,
With,
he's
Great
jumping the
Escape?
fence right now.
All right. No further discussion. We'll vote on this approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Dale, you're up for the Career Technical Education Report.
Thank you very much. The only item I have to bring before you is on page 14, and it's a recommendation to hire a welding paraprofessional. As you know, our welding parapro, Doug Larson, decided to retire this summer, creating a vacancy. We had 10 applicants for the position, extended interviews to 5, and ultimately interviewed 3. Welding instructor Steve Bienick, mechatronics instructor Matt Scott, and myself interviewed those candidates. And we're recommending that you hire Michael Shoup. He has 35 years experience as a welder at Harsco Track Technologies. He's an expert high-skill welder. He also has been teaching adjunct for West Shore Community College in welding. And so we know his track record working with students and his instructional abilities as well. Great fit for us. And it's a nice opportunity to strengthen that partnership with West Shore. And welding instructor Steve Bienick is really happy with this. So that is our recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Any questions for Dale? His report.
Dale, what do your numbers look like for CTE this year?
Our numbers in CTE are strong from the spring requests. They're right about at 600, which is kind of similar to where we were last summer at this time going into the school year. And then with the drop and add process, it goes down from there. We're keeping a really close track on that. Our counselor, Johnson Pesky, is in daily contact with most of the other counselors, seeing what's going to happen there with the decisions that students make, whether to still attend or not to attend. But right now, they're very strong.
Okay, good, thank you.
Further questions for Dale? We'll move on to Carrie's business office update.
Okay, so page 24 is the business office update. And the first section I have is really referring to the budget and pupil accounting reopening work group that we've met regionally since the end of June on a weekly basis to really kind of hammer out, the roadmap and come up with some, I guess you could call them plans for our local districts in terms of budget and pupil accounting. So when I say plan, I guess that's probably kind of a loose term because, the budget, as we've talked about on a regular basis every single month, the budget at this point in time is quite a moving target. We had some action at the end of 1920 to resolve this year. 2021, we're still waiting to hear more information about that. So basically what we did is we took the components of the roadmap and created a template that's going to be to facilitate discussions between the business officials, the local principals, and the superintendents, just to make sure that we are really compiling good financial information. And a lot of that's just because, there's so many moving pieces, as you've already probably ascertained from our preparedness and response plan. Because, you've heard about our experience, and I'm sure Mark can attest to his experience at Eastern, but, that's the experience in each of our local school districts. And so it's really, really difficult for, during these very fluid times to make sure that we're appropriately communicating on a budget perspective level to make sure we're including everything we should be including, whether it's staffing changes, whether it's buying additional PPE, those sort of things. So it's really just, I guess you could call it maybe a roadmap to facilitate those conversations between district leaders. And then on the pupil accounting side, Pam Mowell is, she's the leader on the pupil accounting side, and her and I have worked very closely together with that group because some of that, those people overlap their responsibilities within local school districts. So it made sense for us to collaborate on that. And so Pam has provided to the local superintendents and principals what the current pupil accounting guidance is and really tried to help steer those conversations. So, what are the particular rules and requirements related to e-learning, for example? If a district is going remote, what are some of the things to watch out for to make sure that you don't lose funding? Really trying to, help in that regard. The other thing that's out there too that I've included in my report is there's a series of House bills, 5910 through 5913, that are currently moving its way through the legislative process. It has passed the House. They are now currently sitting in the Senate. We hear that they will have discussion about those in their emergency session on Saturday and on Monday. So we hope to have some more pupil accounting guidance there as well. And so basically what we'll do as a result of that is we'll convey and work with that collaborative group, what are the pupil accounting requirements once this legislation becomes law. So really just, a lot of work there coordinating the pupil accounting and budgeting perspective with our local districts. And then at the bottom of the page on 24, I already talked about the state budget. So one thing we're keeping a close eye on is the August Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference that has been scheduled for August 24th. There's also a series of grant opportunities that we have compiled as well that are available for our local school districts. Most recently, we prepared a spreadsheet that has the current 4 opportunities that are available, which includes the Education Equity Fund that I've included at the bottom of page 24. And then I also learned today that there's a series of 3 new federal grants too that are likely to be rolling forward as well. Other additional opportunities for our local districts. So really just trying to share, the most up-to-date budget information and accounting guidelines as it relates to all of the additional funding so that, districts can capitalize on that to the extent possible. So the other thing that's in my report too, it's actually in Josh's section of the report. Josh is asking for approval of our Power School licensing, and this is our regular recurring renewal of our Power School Student Information System license. So I guess I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions.
Is the Power School renewal cost similar to what it has been, Carrie?
Yes, the Power School is, yep. And the way that it works is, the local districts are, it basically flows through us as the fiscal, and our local districts actually pay for the cost. But since it flows through us and our policy requires, it to be approved because of its, the dollar amount, it exceeds the threshold, so that's the reason for it. We do have a small portion that's applied to special ed and CTE, but the majority of the cost of this contract is the local district's expense.
But we're supporting it, though, we are,
Yes, we are.
yeah, so. Any, other questions for Carrie from the board? Thank you, Carrie. So the motion to approve the Power School license renewal is, what's next on our agenda, folks.
I'll make the motion. I'll second that.
Motion by Shirley with a second of Ellen to approve the Power School license renewal at $47,000, not to exceed $47,146.15. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor of approving the renewal, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Human Resources update. We have a report from, I think I know who it's from. So,
You want me to,
Yeah.
cover some of it?
sure, go ahead.
So we have Terry's last report, and many of the items, as they traditionally are, covered by others during their presentation. A couple things to call your attention to that we didn't talk about. We have 2 postings currently right now for GSRP that are connected to the resignations of GSRP staff that we have already dealt with at this meeting. A couple of new hires. Dale mentioned Mike Shoup, our welding parapro, and then Holly Gilchrist. We're looking for you to approve our new director of human resources. We also have an adjustment with a couple of our folks who you approved to be school psychology apprentices, and we're actually going to move those folks into the bargaining unit to be consistent with the language bargaining unit. So we want your approval to move them over, and that's certainly something we should do to act in accordance with that agreement. And then the last thing that wasn't covered is tonight would represent our second reading of the policies. So really excited. You're aware of that process, but that there was an executive team review of those policies as they related to the various departments. And then we met with the policy committee, and that group's recommendation at the prior meeting to look at this. So, what we would be doing if we took action tonight is we would repeal all of our prior policies except the bullying policy, which requires special hearing, and we would do that at the meeting in September. So that's my best Terry impersonation. I mean, it's not nearly as good. We did see her today. She was in to pick up a few things. So if there are any questions, I'll try to answer.
Jason, I'm not seeing the motion to move the 2 employees into the representative.
Okay, so we're presenting that information to you so you know what we're doing, but it's which is just as important, filling the 2 previously posted open positions.
Right.
Well, thank you for that. Any other questions?
Okay. No other questions? So we have recommendation to hire Michael Shoup, CTE paraprofessional welding instructor.
I'll move. I'll second.
Motion by Ellen Shirley. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote to hire Michael Stroop. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We have the resume for Polly Gilchrist and recommended to hire her as Director of Human Resources. Do you have comments on that? Or-
Well, I would say that Polly had hoped to be here tonight, but she was traveling, so was not able to be here tonight. But she comes highly recommended from a number of colleagues, including some locally who have previously worked with her, and though her title on her resume does not specifically say human resources, she has many of them. Be excited to bring her on board. Quite popular with the hire.
We have a motion to approve the employment of Polly Gilchrist as Director of Human Resources beginning August 17th. Motion by Pat, with support of Shirley. Any discussion, any further discussion? That will vote to hire Polly Gilchrist as Director of Human Resources. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. We have an employment contract for Jen Horton, and I think it was Kim, I think that. It was Amy, I'm sorry. So, discuss that.
I'll second it, I know we're too.
Motion by Shirley, with support of Ellen. Discussion? Not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And then second reading and adoption of our board policies. Which basically revises them all, save for the bullying policy that requires that special hearing procedure. Have a motion.
Support.
Motion by Pat with support of Mark to approve those, and we did have a virtual meeting of the policy committee. It was the first part of July to discuss this. You know, Secretary was very much involved in this, as she always has been with the policies. So, major change in organization that's going to support, but I think it's a good move because the legal firm that advises us on how to follow the policy is now the one that's actually authoring them and doing it directly in-house rather than having a separate party doing it. There was discussion on the policies and bylaws adoption. Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. And then we have a motion to approve the COVID-19 preparedness plan that was presented to us at the beginning.
So moved.
Motion by Mark with support of Pat. Any further discussion? Well,
We'll take that, thank you.
Good luck. What, I guess that doesn't bring a question, it's gonna have to be changed and revised and so forth.
It's gonna be a living document.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fluid all the way.
So does that come back to the board for approval or how, probably, I'm assuming not, some flexibility here. Probably we don't know.
that's the right answer, you know, we're trying to get an answer on what constitutes so significant that we would have to do. But I think the bottom line is we will keep you informed. We'll certainly work within those true policies. And, you know, between those two things, I don't think that there should be any. One thing that we'll want to do when it's not a policy, it's a resolution. But you'll remember we had the prior resolution that allowed us to, you know, go beyond the parameters of our policies so that we can comply with executive orders and directives. And we had that resolution or meeting late in the springtime. We will need to re-up that resolution, and we have a new one from Troon, so.
That had an expiration date
Yes,
that I think might have been July.
Yeah, it
30th.
was in July, I believe, so we'll bring that to you at an upcoming meeting, so we have that.
Any further discussion on the COVID preparedness plan?
Well, we're fortunate, we have a great team.
So we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition, the motion is carried.
Thank you.
Other business on our agenda? I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, folks, for your help.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.